And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage, along with the one and only ZFG Zach friggin' McGibbon. Oh my God, what a day for him, Zach. I'm telling you, when you tell people the story of Friday, September the 6th, it goes, This Is Wrestling. It goes, the Trenton Golden Hawks pretending to be contenders, actually pretenders, and going to lose to Collingwood just in April, and it's September. So 7 months before, we already know what's going to happen. Just like I knew that Cody was going to go on to WrestleMania 40 in the Rocky moment. Anyway. Nice to have you back on the show. Oh, and you work today, by the way, as well.
Yes.
So it's a busy day. How are you?
I'm doing good, Lee. Yeah, it's been busy. Worked a little bit earlier than usual for today, and then getting this recording the podcast in, and then, as you mentioned, get set for the opening game of the Trenton Golden Hawks season. Really looking forward to that. It'll be a rematch from last year's conference finals matchup between them and the Coburg Cougars. For the Calgary Flames fans tuning in, Trevor Hoskin was on that Coburg Cougars squad, drafted in the 4th round in this year's NHL draft. So it's very exciting. We got this big rematch. It's kind of a little bit of a local rivalry as well. Not as big as the Wellington-Trenton rivalry, but still you get people traveling down from Coburg for this game, and obviously you have the Trenton Golden Hawks fans in attendance. So I'm fired up. I'm pumped up. I don't want to hear your negativity. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how this Trenton Golden Hawks squad looks for this upcoming season.
It's not negative, Zach. Sometimes we just deal in facts. And the facts are the Kansas City Chiefs, as we record this, won by a toenail last night.
Yes.
On their destiny to three-peat in the NFL. Just like the Collingwood Blues are going to three-peat and take over and call themselves 3-time champions. I'm just telling you it's going to happen. So it's not negative. Okay? It's not negative at all. It's just factual, Zach. It's just what is going to happen. Speaking about what's going to happen, we're going to do an all-out preview on this show. We're going to get our AEW fanboy, Ben Soubliere, on the show. I can say that before he comes on because he probably won't hear it, at least until after he goes back and listens to himself, because he's pompous and he likes to listen to himself. So he'll go back and listen to it, and then when he joins us, then he'll be mad later, but that's fine. Like,
Get your stuff in now before he runs in.
Well, it's like I could just say anything, right? I could be Hulk Hogan and say I didn't use my creative control ever.
That's right.
In WCW, I had it, but I didn't use it ever.
Brother, they just want me to win, brother. I don't know, dude. They told me to win, and so I won, brother.
Zach, I'm telling you right now, this latest comment by Terry, who I'm now going to refer to him as, he's now just Terry from now on.
Mr. Balea?
No, he doesn't even get a Mr.
Wow.
As Terry has lied and lied and lied, but now has lied with the biggest part of like his entire WCW career. He literally just lied. And you don't think he's the worst thing that ever happened in professional wrestling? He's now on my Mount Rushmore as #1 hated wrestler of all time. And I don't care how bad and how pompous Kevin Nash thinks he is. I don't care how bad Goldberg and his egomaniac run it, still talking somehow about Goldberg today when he's been useless for like 10 years or more. Those guys pale in comparison to Terry.
Yeah.
I need you to comment on this before we talk about All Out and what I thought was a rather bland Dynamite until the last 7 minutes.
Yep.
And then a little bit about the WWE as well. But I need you to comment on this Hogan saying that he didn't ever use it. Like there's a point where I laugh at him and like, okay, the guy's like full of himself and he can't get over himself, blah, 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 blah. This one pissed me off. This one actually made me angry because how many careers that guy put on the shelf because of his ego is you wouldn't even be able to list them all. And now he has the audacity to say this. I just can't even. Like, I can't even.
Yeah, it was something else.
So I need you to comment on and like at least bring me somewhat into reality of like, 10 minutes of some guy kicking his ass all the time, bootleg. First match in the company, he won the belt from Flair. Didn't he like? I think I read, and I didn't realize this, that when Randy Savage won the title, he beat him the next night twice.
Yes, that's
Is
right.
That true?
I believe you are correct. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just think about that. Randy Savage wins the WCW Heavyweight Championship, and Hogan put himself over on Savage the next night twice. Just that alone. And the finger poke of doom, and him leaving with Bischoff the night of Jarrett and Russo, and I had no idea what happened, and like, oh my God, there's just so much, Zach, that it's crossing the line from fun to actually making me hate the guy.
I'm more shocked he wasn't number one already, to be honest.
Yeah, he probably was just in the group.
I see.
With like Kevin Nash, Goldberg. Who else would be on the list of
Ultimate Warrior?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's on mine.
Yeah, he wasn't a great person, and he was a terrible wrestler.
Yeah.
And I can't believe people ever got into him. He wasn't a great person. You know what it is about Hellwig is that first of all, he has passed on, and that sucks for his family. And then second of all, I never cared about him enough to be mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the other guys were kind of forced in your face for a long time, and they like when I was into it and understood things. Like those guys had influence over things that I just was like, you can't do that. Whereas I never really felt that way with Helwig, but I know he wasn't a great person sometimes. But yeah, Ultimate Warrior would probably be on the list. He just wouldn't be in the top. Like those three were in the top, like just a bunch of guys that were my most hated, but Hogan has separated himself. Terry has.
Yes, that's right. Well, it was one of many crazy quotes from Hogan on. This was from his interview with Logan Paul on Paul's podcast there, and it was something. It was like a long line of treasure trove of quotes that was released. The other quote that really kind of took me aback was about getting forgiveness from the fans, and he compared his situation to that of former wrestler Chris Benoit, saying if fans can forgive Chris Benoit, if Chris Benoit can do the crap he did and the fans still love him, why can't I? That last part, a little bit of a paraphrase, but that was a quote as well from that interview. I must have missed that part where Benoit was forgiven. So I think I must have missed that part, but yeah, it was it's quite the interview. There's always something with Hogan's interviews when something comes out of it, whether it be, saying he was going to be the basis for Metallica, or, he was wrestling at Wembley and he created a song for a Make-A-Wish kid, but he never wrestled at Wembley, so the story can't possibly be about that. It's like stuff like that with Hogan over the years that he's quite become, if not already, quite the caricature of himself.
So you didn't, it was just another interview for you?
It didn't. The creative control stuff, like, I'm just so used to the outlandish stuff that Hogan said. Like, it doesn't shock me that he said he'd never use creative control. Like, because he's so... I've never understood his ability, why he continues to try and embellish his own career and just lie like this. But nonetheless, he does. And I just continue to hear these lies. And again, it doesn't shock me about creative control. I believe he said in the past where he's like, oh, I've tried to help out Talent Brother, and, you know, they just didn't want my help, dude, and all this stuff. So it's another Hogan interview for me, but the quotes were quite something. I thought the Benoit stuff was way more like, okay, that's a little bit delusional to think that than the creative control stuff. But I could understand why you would be frustrated on that, because
so I'm a guy, like, look, and you know how much I appreciate, and it's one of the reasons why, like, you could tell me more about the era that I grew up and watched, because you've gone back and like watched and studied, and you know everything that there is to know about stuff that I'm amazed by. And I mean that like so sincerely, that it's incredible the amount of knowledge that you have for being like as young as you are, and how much you care about kind of the history of the business. I think it's like one of a kind. But and I'm not trying to like pump myself up. I'm just saying it's different sometimes when you actually live through it. And I remember how angry I was in the first match when Hogan came in and won the title from Flair. And I was a big Flair guy, and I understood bringing Hogan in, but it was just like, oh no, here we go again. Like I was angry. And then after that, I couldn't even, the timeline was like, they had a Ric Flair retires thing. And it was like, well, there's no way Flair's going to retire, so at least he'll beat Hogan here. Nope. And then I tried to tune out of like Dungeon of Doom and Beefcake and Zodiac, who's the same guy.
Shark.
I know.
Don't forget
like,
Shark.
No, Shark, and of course Kevin Sullivan, and
Kamala was there for a hot second, if I recall.
Yeah, Kamala, and then whoever was like who was the other guy in it that wasn't a wrestler, that was always in the vignettes. Anyway, it was just the most terrible thing in the world ever. And then I get it. He comes in and he's the third member. The NWO takes off, and it's like something like we've never seen before. They needed that kind of star power. Okay, cool. He, like, you know, and then obviously he wins the title. And then he just did the same crap that he always did, except he was the head of the NWO. And it went on and on and on. And then, you know, of course it was his idea. He called Eric Bischoff to say, let's do it on Nitro. Let's lose the belt to Goldberg on Nitro. I think that's a good idea.
Probably left out the facts like, now as long as I get my win back in the future, brother, because we got to do it equal, dude.
Yeah, and like it was his idea. Like, are you flipping kidding me? Nobody believes that ever. Somebody went to him and said, hey, we think this is a good idea. And while he signed off on it, good for him, with the creative control that he played the entire way through his run. He signed off on that, of course, with promises later.
Yep.
But don't ever forget an 18-month storyline with Sting, an 18-month storyline that he sat there a couple hours before that match in Washington at Starrcade and said, not tonight, brother. And all of a sudden we got one of the worst culminations of an 18-month feud I've ever witnessed in my life, because he just couldn't do the right thing. So while you were living through it, like, I understand going back and watching it, and I appreciate everyone who does, that there was some really good stuff happening back, like in, especially with my heyday of like, I grew up in the 80s watching, but I really got into it in the 90s. Like,
yep.
And, you know, and ECW came along, and I went to WWF shows in the early 90s, and like there was just so much. I was fully into it. And the amount of things that guy did over the course of his entire tenure in WCW. For him to say this now, it makes me rage because I had to live through all of the things that he did.
Yes.
Pretending like he didn't do them. So anyway, if you want to check it out, as you said, he's on Logan Paul's podcast.
I don't know why you want to check it out.
Well, no, if people want to hear it, because I think just taking our word for it, if you want to go and listen to it, the guy's an absolute buffoon.
Yeah.
And like speaking out of his ass, like, I'm Hulk Hogan, so just believe me. Well, it doesn't work that way,
brother.
Okay. So okay, now I got that out of my system. I got the fact that we got a big NFL weekend coming up. Looking forward to that. But of course, we're looking forward to Saturday night, All Out. And let's go back first to Dynamite on Wednesday with AEW and ask what you thought of. I'll ask you right up until the beginning of the contract signing what you thought of Dynamite.
An all right, but not great edition of the show. Very angle heavy for Dynamite, which I was somewhat expecting that because, we have the short build in between of All In to All Out, and they want to try and get some heat on some programs. And boy, did we get some heat on a program later on. But in terms of what we were getting here, there was stuff I liked, some stuff I didn't like. It was very much kind of setting the seeds, planting the seeds for the upcoming pay-per-view. I thought it was an all right Dynamite, but not one of the better Dynamites I've seen for sure.
In a shocking ending of a trios match, Kyle O'Reilly took the pin and lost another match.
Yes.
Oh my God. What is happening to this guy?
Yeah. The conglomeration that he's in.
It's an abomination, is what it is.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I laid it up and you knocked it out of the park. I knew you were gonna say something about it, and we got a rhyme. I love it. You got a rhyme out of it.
Oh my God. I can't. There's a lot of it I can't handle. I do want to ask you a little bit more about Moxley and Marina Shafir. We talked about it before. They come back out. He's still looking for Darby Allin. So why do you think John Moxley's looking for Darby Allin? Is he looking for him to like fight him and get into a feud, maybe cost Darby Allin? He's got a big world title match coming up in a couple of weeks. It feels like it's leading to that somehow, or is he looking for Darby Allin to maybe be part of his team?
Could be interesting if it goes that path. That would be the first time, if I recall, Darby being a heel in this company, because the way that it's being presented, it's very much heel leaning. My instinct right now is that they're just kind of setting something up for that title shot taking place at the Grand Slam show at Arthur Ashe. That's my sense of it all. It is kind of funny how he's just continued to walk around asking to find Darby Allin. It's like, can you not call the guy? Can you not text the guy? I know he's not on any social media, Mr. Moxley, but I think he has a cell phone. Maybe the old flip phone that he has there. Not call him, text him, and try and get something organized. But I guess we'll have to take up some TV time to try and find out where Darby is. But alas, I think it's all part of a title shot and trying to build up to something for that. And I thought maybe they would try and set something up for All Out for it, but it seems like this might be something that's after the pay-per-view.
Yeah. There's something in me, though, that thinks that everything that John Moxley said about Darby Allin, Darby certainly does go for broke. He goes, quote unquote, all in and isn't scared of anything. And it's kind of what he looks for, Moxley. And if you're wondering kind of where to go, I don't know that this needs to be a heel group. I don't know. I look at who they might be going up against, and it kind of feels like it might be the BCC. And I also don't know why he's looking at Jack Perry in the hallway going, that's a sweet kid. Maybe they're going up against the Elite. I don't know. I just don't know where Darby is going in the future. And to me, being a part of like this daredevil, real Fight Club thing to me is, I don't know. It makes me feel like that he could be a part of it. Next thing for Darby, and to be part of this group that's going to go after the Elite, or because you can't tell me like BCC, I just don't know where they are, what they are, who they are. Trios champions, I guess, but are they heels? Are they faces? I don't know.
They seem to be faces currently.
Yeah, but okay, first of all, not for me. When Claudio and Wheeler come out, I just like, stop it, guys. Now Pac, yeah, I kind of like him, but you're telling me that if the BCC was Pac and Claudio and Wheeler, that couldn't be a heel group?
Oh, they could definitely be a heel group.
Yeah. Well, okay.
But Danielson's also in BCC, right? So, and he's a baby face right now.
Yeah, right now.
You're sticking to your guns on this heel turn that's coming up for Danielson, are you?
I don't think it's. I think he got his moment, and I think that's awesome. But I don't think it's riding off into the sunset either. And I think this company is doing a good job at blurring the lines, because when we get to, and we might as well talk about it right now, the end of Dynamite, you tell me who the heel and the face is between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. As I thought they did a pretty decent job earlier in the show at showing Swerve Strickland buying his childhood home. And then one of the best endings for me of a television show I've watched in a long time, a little reminiscent of like what the WWF might have done in the late 90s. Now, they tried some things that didn't work, but this feels like a WWF 97 hot, show where
Pillman's Got a Gun-esque angle.
Yeah, that wasn't the best thing ever, but Austin could go and, they would throw titles in the river, or they would, they would just do things at people's homes. But anyway, Hangman Page burns down the childhood home of Swerve Strickland. Now, most times when a person is sitting in a chair in front of the house, enjoying the fact that a house is burning down of somebody's childhood, that's the heel. But Swerve Strickland also talked about Hangman Page's wife and stalking his house and going to his house, and it's kind of made Hangman Page this crazy person, but not necessarily, to me, heel crazy, just crazy. And now they're going to be in a steel cage coming up in what is going to be the main event as well. And we can talk about the fact that the main event is going to not be for the title. But what did you think of the ending? Did you love it as much as I did?
I was conflicted with the ending.
Okay.
Conflicted. I liked it. It made sense. It totally makes sense for Hangman to be that upset, to be that mad, to, go into his arch nemesis's house, childhood home, and burn it down after what he had been going through with Swerve. I totally get all that. The visual was cool, but I'm conflicted about it because it's like what you mentioned. It is something you would see the WWF in the late 90s do. And the reason why I'm conflicted with that is just it continues to show how different this company is from a few years ago. And I don't think the AEW of 2021 would be doing an angle like this. But it's one of those things, because it's like I see angles like that, and I've seen it happen in wrestling time and time again, where they see the success of this, and then the people in the back go, "Oh, we got to do something similar like this," because it's pretty much copycat in pro wrestling. So that's really my concern in the long term of this, is that we get inferior angles that is reminiscent of other WWE stuff, and we've already seen some transition of that in AEW right now. But in a vacuum, for this story, for this show, I really liked it. I really liked the visual. As soon as I saw them show Swerve's house, even I was like, they're burning that house down. That house is gonna get burned down. And lo and behold, it did. Really, my only gripe of the angle is I wish it could have been spaced out a little bit more, as opposed to it all happening in one show. Like, when they announced that Swerve had re-signed, like, that could be a cool addition to after the contract. It's like, well, it was announced that Swerve has re-signed, and he intends to buy his childhood home with the new money, and you continue to go on that babyface side for Swerve and get people behind him and let a couple of weeks pass, and then you culminate with this angle here. But otherwise, I liked it in a vacuum. But in the long term, I'm worried about how this will kind of affect how AEW views angles and how they want to implement angles like that in the future. Because I worry then they become even more like WWE, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
so.
and that's totally fair. But let's let that play out first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, this was an unbelievable angle because you really do believe that Hangman has like lost his mind. You really do believe that he is like on another level of crazy. And what he's going to do next, you have no idea. And then Swerve, we know that he was always willing to take whatever means necessary to win, and he would cross lines to be able to do that. And now these two are fighting each other, and I ask you, who's the heel? Who's the face?
I still think the face is Swerve, and I still think the heel is Hangman, and I go on that based on the one comment made by Excalibur on commentary, where he says, even you can't even believe that Hangman still believes he's on the righteous path anymore. And that's kind of a quote of saying, look, sure, it might be his version of justifying it, but even going so far as to burn another man's house down, that's just a little too far. Like, arson is not well liked, last I checked. Certainly not in the law. But nonetheless, yeah, I still think that they've got the Swerve as the babyface and then Hangman as the heel. But you're kind of getting closer and closer and closer to them sort of crossing a path, and you could eventually do another double turn where Swerve goes back as the heel and Hangman goes back as a babyface.
But I don't disagree, and I believe we have a guest waiting. Do we have our guest waiting or no?
I believe he is in the room right now. He is muted, but he might be just listening along. But he's waiting along.
Well, that's nice of him. He can wait. He can wait a little bit longer.
I thought you guys had muted me. I didn't realize I had the power.
You have the power, my friend.
I'm glad we said all those bad things about you before you came on, Ben Soubliere.
I still have more bad things, and there's one thing I really want to say to you, Ben, during this review. How about that? There's a tease.
Preview, you mean?
Or preview, I should say. My bad.
Wow, correcting the host right away on his first thing he's going to do.
Yeah. Are we on like preempting, and we're going to air this afterwards?
So, Ben, nice of you to join us. I did describe you, and I think very well said by me, like AEW fanboy here to talk about the show. But I was talking about, I don't know if you heard about the angle at the end of Dynamite, and I loved it. Zach's cautious because that's who Zach is. But he's very cautious of what might come in the future. But I loved this angle because I just thought it was, for both guys, it gets them to that next level. What did you think of the angle at the end of Dynamite?
I thought, especially with them adding the stipulation that it's now a unsanctioned lights out steel cage match, I thought it upped the ante of this feud, which is crazy considering the lengths and that they've both gone to in it, and it's been going on for almost exactly a year. I think September 23rd was their first encounter of 2023. So yeah, I thought it was awesome. I thought the overall Dynamite show itself was kind of meh, but that conclusion was awesome, and it was kind of like Chekhov's gun, right? Where they referenced the house, they put it on social media, and I was kind of like, oh man, what a great story. They actually convinced me that this was true. And then they get to the end of the show, and you're like, oh yeah, I know where this is going. And it was perfect because it wasn't he was essentially splashing gasoline the entire time he's walking through the house, but they never outright showed the gas can. So it kind of was like that really well built up like horror movie moment where he gets to like stand back and see his creation. So I loved it. I love that they're going towards that unsanctioned steel cage match, which I think in terms of making things make sense, if you're putting it on in the main event, but it's not technically sanctioned, it's kind of after the main event, kind of like they did before with some of the lights out matches. I think that's great, but I also said before, I thought Hangman and Swerve could have been your all-in main event, and it would have been completely fine. But happy to have the match on All Out 2 weeks later.
Okay, well, let's go through some of the matches, and we'll get to that in the end as we talk about the show coming up on Saturday. The only other decent part of Dynamite for me in a more than meh show was, and it took a little long, but Daniel Garcia and MJF and their promo, and Garcia does everything he possibly can do to get up to where MJF is, and then he gets smashed on the head with a wine glass, and you have MJF literally sitting there holding him like a baby and kissing his blood and everything for a short build, even though, in All In, Daniel Garcia was one of the reasons why MJF lost. For a short build, I feel like this has done a pretty good job, and the two are going to go at it. Zach, let's start with you on what you think is going to happen between Daniel Garcia and MJF.
I think this is the start of the feud. I think there's more that they could do here. And so I've got MJF winning this match. I think there's more that they could build upon here because, MJF is coming off the loss at All In. And I think this will be a way to kind of get that one back. I've enjoyed the way this feud has gone. As you mentioned, the opening angle there I thought was really good. As you mentioned, albeit a little long. But the feud has been going back ever since MJF just lost it on Garcia and took him out for weeks in a storyline sense before All In. And this is, I think, the first of a more matches to come. And I think for that to continue, I think you're going to have MJF find a way to cheat to win and get the victory over Daniel Garcia at All Out.
Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I can't really disagree. It kind of reminds me of the MJF Darby Allin feud where MJF promised to beat Darby Allin with a headlock. I think you'll see something kind of similar, whether he uses Daniel Garcia's sharpshooter to beat him. Kind of unfortunate that they've lost the Dynamite Diamond Ring because they can't use that until I guess they get a replacement. But yeah, it'll be something kind of cheeky that MJF wins to continue the feud.
Well, and for both of you, it's tough to disagree with either of you because you think about the opposite. If Daniel Garcia were to win, would you really believe that if they wrestled again after that MJF just wouldn't win? Like, MJF isn't losing both of these.
No.
So
exactly.
I think to build up Daniel Garcia, you got to continue the feud and you got to have him lose, but people feel, not great, or they feel for him in the process. And, as it continues down the road, then yeah, he gets a big win over MJF and, both can kind of move on. It probably puts Daniel Garcia in a better spot after that. But I don't, all three of us kind of on the same page here. All right, what else did we have? We have Kazuchika Okada defending the Continental title, but we don't know who it's going to be because we got a live Rampage and Collision to kind of figure that out as we are recording this. right now? Anybody have guesses who they think is going to be there?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Before I even get to the participants, I just want to say I can't stand that we're doing this match type for this championship. I can't believe we're doing a 4-way match for the Continental Championship. The way that they built this thing over the last bit about no outside interference and establishing all these rules, and we're not going to get any of this stuff. It's just be straight-laced wrestling, and we're going to get this gimmicky 4-way match where then they could do all this outside stuff, because that's just generally how 4-ways go. And this is the thing I wanted to say to Ben. I cannot stand this Kazuchika Okada character anymore. Can't stand it. I'm done. I'm done with this Okada character. The minute that he was walking and talking backstage with Mercedes Moné and being all giggly and all this stuff, I saw my interpretation of Kazuchika Okada from New Japan slowly slip away. And now he is just a comedic character that's a part of the storyline and not one of the featured players in AEW, in my mind. And I know he's in the storyline with the Elite and all that, but I feel like he could be so much more than how they're doing with him right now. And I just look at this match type 2 with the 4-way. It's infuriating to me. This is not how I would have booked Okada. Having said all of that, as I look through all the matches here of what they could do for the 4-way, I know for sure that Konosuke Takeshita will be in there. I don't need to watch Rampage or Collision to know that. And I'm looking through some of the other match types here. I believe Commander is in a match as well. All that to say, I'm just not a fan of the way that they've been pushing this Okada character, and I think it's leaned far too much to the comedic side for my liking for this character and what he's brought with him in the past to here in AEW, that I'm losing a lot of faith in their ability to push this guy.
I strongly disagree with you, sir.
I know you would.
And it's not to say that I think that he's being used like to the best of his ability or anything like that. I just think that he's already done what he did in New Japan. And yes, a good percentage of the audience hasn't seen his work in New Japan. And I think we're getting something that's a little bit fresh for Okada and a little bit fun. And we're still getting really good matches. Like the match with Claudio was great. And I'm sure this Fatal 4-Way match, even though, like you outlined, it doesn't follow the typical I would say like rules of what they kind of outlined the Continental Classic was. But if they do end up just wrestling a straight Fatal 4-Way match without too much outside interference, I don't think I'll have too many complaints about the match itself. Especially when you consider it's likely, like you had said, going to be Takeshita, probably Orange Cassidy, and one of Mark Briscoe and Lance Archer. I think it'll probably be Lance Archer to really just have somebody in there that offers a little bit of variety in that match. But I actually find the character pretty entertaining. I think you're in the minority in terms of people that are not necessarily enjoying the character.
Oh, I know. I'm aware of that.
Would I like to see something else out of him? Sure. But I'm actually happy to kind of patiently wait for that. I think that Kenny Omega being hurt kind of put some of Okada's plans on the back burner, and they're maybe stalling a little bit with him, but you can always fire him back up and put him back on that path if you need to. Whereas I think if you started with a serious Okada and then tried to get him to branch out and to do something different, you'd have a harder time pulling the audience along with that. So I actually think like the way that they started it, like right from the get-go, joining the Elite, flipping off the crowd and getting into some of these sports entertainment-y segments is fine. If he's still doing it 6 months from now and it hasn't changed or evolved, then I think you're going to run into the same problem that MJF ran into last year, where it becomes too gimmicky, it becomes too slapstick. And yes, I don't know if I love any segments with Mercedes Moné right now, but definitely don't need him getting involved in those storylines. But if it's just for these one-off little segments where he's flipping off the crowd or he's working in gorilla position, I'm okay with it for the next little while.
I want to say this quickly before you jump in there, Lee. I want to say this. I don't see the way that they're pushing Okada right now in AEW any differently than how WWE would have pushed him right now. I really don't. I agree with you at the start when they put him in and they, put him with the elite. And I'm not saying no comedy, right? He had that element, in American wrestling, you're going to get that sort of entertainment edge, for lack of a better term. And he was doing that stuff, but I feel they've just veered way too far into it where you're talking about 6 months from now, they might be too much. I'm saying it's happening already. And is he a guy that, if they decided to like put some resources back in and they push him back as a serious threat, that he'd be taken credibly? Absolutely. But right now, I am not in on Okada.
All right, I'll be the tiebreaker here because I kind of agree with both of you at the same time here. It's going on a little long for me, where I just feel like, okay, I'm gonna get this same Okada comedy stuff, and like, when am I gonna get like even this match a day before the pay-per-view? We don't know who he's wrestling, and it's like, could we just get him in a real feud with like that matters? But at the same time, I also agree with Ben, where I think if you were going to bring him in and let him get adjusted and not going to thrust him into like main events right away, this is not a bad way to do it. And you can always go from comedy to serious. It's really tough to go from serious to comedy. And I don't think, Zach, that it's going to be nearly as hard as you're saying it is to heat that guy up if he wants to just get serious and start, wrestling other serious guys in serious ways. I think you'd long forget this. I don't think it would be an issue whatsoever. But what I don't like about this too is, like, first of all, it's not really making me want to watch Rampage and Collision to find out who's going to lose to Okada tomorrow night. But they're losing. So Okada's not losing the title to whoever wins tonight, right? We can agree with that?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of the card though and trying to figure out like, are any title matches or any titles going to change hands? And the Continental Classic, if they're going to do it again in December, is kind of towards like around the corner. So do you want to have Okada in that and defending within that tournament, or is he going to be moving on to something else? So he's probably not losing tonight, especially to Lance Archer or Mark Briscoe. I don't think it would be Orange Cassidy, but maybe it's Takeshita, and you have that feud draw out for a little while and then see where it goes with the Continental Classic. But I don't know, 90% sure that Okada's retaining.
Yeah, that was a classic Ben. I'm going to say 90%, but then if Takeshita or somebody wins, he's like, I told you so. It's good strategy. I understand it. I can tell you one title that won't change hands is the TBS Championship. Mercedes Moné going up against the jobber in Shida. Like, when's the last time Shida won a big match?
I could search it up right now if you want. My first instinct is Ring of Honor, because that's where she's been the last month or two.
I need you to go and tell me what her win-loss record and the opponents over the last couple of months, because I've seen her lose a lot.
Yes.
Now, not necessarily in Ring of Honor. I haven't watched Ring of Honor that closely, but I don't see Hikaru Shida winning a lot of big matches.
So she won the number one contendership for the TBS title on Collision.
Yeah.
And that was against Queen Aminata, Serena Deeb, and Thunder Rosa. Then she lost to...
Hold on. Why would any of those women be in a shot for the number one contender?
Well, we don't have rankings or records anymore. Well, we still have records sometimes on the bottom screen, but we don't have rankings anymore, so I can't explain that for you.
Okay.
So, and then the match before that was actually a match against Mercedes Moné on Dynamite in Norfolk, Virginia, where she lost to Mercedes Moné. And then she beat Aaliyah James in a minute 40 on Collision, on the Collision before that Dynamite, and then lost to Britt Baker at Blood and Guts in a 10-minute match. So it's been an up and down run for one Hikaru Shida. If you want like a legitimate one, you might say her defeat over Sky Blue, but that was the match where Sky Blue I think blew out her knee in that match. So against like a name opponent other than the number one contendership, obviously. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes.
Almost a Claudio-esque record there, right, Lee?
Yes.
Almost. I noticed that Claudio was put in a really big spot with the swing and then the kick from Yuta. And, you know, if they didn't beat Kyle O'Reilly, who loses every match he ever is in, I would say, oh, Claudio got a big win. But no, of course not.
So tough on Claudio. So tough on him.
Yeah, but I'm tough on O'Reilly, too. Like, what's he doing?
Well, yeah, definitely with the O'Reilly stuff, he's just been losing a lot of his matches. But Claudio's got a couple of W's under his belt. The tag team of Claudio and Wheeler Yuta hasn't won that much this year, so I'm just trying to figure out why they have a title
champions.
Shot. Yeah, trios champions, of course. But I'm trying to figure out why they have a title shot as well. I know they had the explanation on Dynamite, but
all right. Well, it was Willow Nightingale picking the stipulation of a Chicago street fight in Chicago against Chris Statlander. CMLL Women's World Champion Willow Nightingale against Chris Statlander. This feels like Chris Statlander is finally winning a title and getting a big win over somebody in a big spot to me, but I don't know how you guys feel. Zach?
Well, I'll say this. It was initially for that CMLL Women's Championship, but it's now been dropped from the stipulations. So now it's just a straight up Chicago street fight. So
okay.
That leads me to believe, even with the title dropped, that Statlander even more so is going to win, because I think they wanted Statlander to win the title, and I think based on talk going around that CMLL kind of came in and said, hey, we'd like Willow as our champion. Can you please not change the championship to Chris Statlander? We're trying to get Willow established on our show. So I think they have removed the CMLL World Championship stipulation on that for the women's title so that they could get Chris Statlander the victory in this street fight. That is my hunch.
Ben?
Yeah, I think this will be a sneaky good match.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you look at the work that Willow and Statlander have done over the course of, it feels like they were together about 6 months ago, and the feud has kind of been building off of that. I feel like this is a really good opportunity to shine. And I was mentioning to our group chat that I feel like this whole card has an opportunity to be a really sneaky good pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really like, I think the exact words I used were all in was for the casuals, all out's for the sickos, because I really don't foresee a bad match on this card. I guess we'll see if anything gets announced after Collision and Rampage tonight. But when we were looking at the all in card, we were kind of going, Jericho and Hook, and a couple of the other matches on there were kind of like, they might be okay. And thankfully we were a little bit wrong in terms of the Toni Storm and Mariah May match being better than the TBS title match. And I feel like this card, you get all these people that weren't necessarily on All In or completely featured in All In who get to really show their stuff in Chicago. And so I think this street fight's going to be a lot of fun, and wouldn't surprise me if it's even better than our expectations.
I told you he's a fanboy. Zach?
I don't disagree with a lot of what he said either.
Oh, come on. Come on. Like,
this could be a sneaky good pay-per-view.
Oh, sneaky good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no titles. You guys are talking about, we need a tag we need a title change. WWE's got the women's tag. AEW's got the Continental Championship. Like, come on.
I'm saying match quality wise, I think there could be some real good matches here.
Well, I don't care how good Sheeta wrestles. When I know she's not winning, I care less. And I told you this before, and I told you this in the Bash of Berlin. The Bash of Berlin is what the title of our show should have been. because I know Ben has a problem with your ranking system, by the way, and I hope he brings that up with you before the end of the show and how you come to your stars. But
was it because it's a star less than the All Out All In show that I made Bash in Berlin, whatever the hell that show is?
I guess how long did the show run? 3.5 hours for 5 matches, and you still gave it 6.25? That seems awfully generous.
Trying to make me into Meltzer here, not giving it a 10, and so I immediately think it's bad or great. Oh Lord!
I know he. I'm telling you, Ben wasn't happy, but
it was more about the consistency. If you're gonna rank one high or one low, that's fine. It's just to go from a 1-star difference between those two shows. Is that really how you felt?
I did not think All In was this all-time great stadium show. I thought it was a good pro wrestling show. I gave it a 7.25. I liked it.
You see, Ben, you see what I get with Zach? I gave it a 7.25 and he's screaming it like somehow that's like a 10 in other people's worlds.
You're all sounded like the people that get mad at Dave because they didn't give a WWE match 5 stars.
I know, but you're giving.
Oh, you gave it 4.5. Oh, he must thinks it sucks.
You're giving a card a B-, and you're like, it's awesome. Look at me. I gave a B-. Come on, Zach.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked the show.
I guess.
I think you need to reevaluate. I think what you need to do is you need to look at how you scored each match individually and then come back to us with your averaged out score, because I feel like there's a discrepancy.
Okay. So in the mind here of and the overarching piece of consistency, I'm going to stay consistent because I crapped on the WWE for having a card that I knew exactly what was going to happen the entire way through. Right?
Yep.
Did I do that? Did I do that? Zach?
You did.
Did I do that, Ben? So basically I got another card here where we can talk, I guess, about that there's possible other winners, but I got a pretty good suspicion that I'm going to go perfect on this card because I know exactly what's going to happen. And now it's supposed to be, well, it's going to be sneaky good. Don't care that Hikaru Shida is in a match for the TBS championship when she has no business being there, doesn't deserve it, and she's going to work really hard but still lose. I don't care. And so now we move on to I'm going to get to it because I think, honestly, it's the match I'm looking forward to. I'll call it fourth most. Is that like, I don't even know. There are 3 matches I'm looking forward to more than I'm looking forward to the AEW World Championship match between Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry. If you guys are going to sit here and tell me that Jack Perry has even an iota of a chance of walking away with the AEW World Championship, I'm here for it. I'm listening. But don't try and sell me on the fact that Jack Perry, who hasn't been in a good match in a very long time, is going to go out there and rule against Bryan Danielson and walk away with the title, or at least have the chance to walk away with the title. Ben, this match has Bryan Danielson carrying Jack Perry's ass for 23 minutes before he finally beats him. And everyone goes, oh, look how great Jack Perry looked. Well, no, look how good Bryan Danielson carried him.
I don't disagree. I think that you can be pleasantly surprised. I think you actually had a really good comment about it on I can't remember if it was last week's show or the show earlier this week. And it was about, is this the opportunity for Jack Perry to show that he can hang with Bryan Danielson?
Yes.
Because you're going to be very hard pressed to find somebody that can top Bryan Danielson. And I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting Jack to win, unless for some reason like Bryan Danielson like literally needs surgery tomorrow. But I think this can be a coming out party for Jack Perry in the sense that since he's been back, he's been in multi-man matches. He does have a pinfall over Bryan Danielson, by the way, after Anarchy in the Arena. So it's not like it technically was like an open challenge, but there was some logic there in terms of they've been feuding, he has the pinfall, all that sort of stuff. But I think like this is a huge spot for Jack Perry, in that I think if you were to go back and look at his matches prior to All In last year, he was doing, stuff with Christian Cage. He was doing stuff with Hook. But really, like, the biggest spot he was probably in was that Full Gear match versus Luchasaurus, which was actually a really good steel cage match. But it's been a while since he's had that opportunity to showcase anything. He did have, like, the Four Pillars match that I think was way better than most people gave credit to. So, yes, there's almost zero chance he's going to win the title. But I think what you're looking for here is this a guy, and not just a guy that can be on your mid card and fill in where you need him to, but can this be somebody that can sit at the upper part of your mid card and occasionally get elevated?
Yeah, look, I don't disagree too with this is a huge spot for Jack Perry to see if he can hang with him, can see if he can move up the ladder and be a guy to be counted on. This is a major spot for him, for sure. I guess, Zach, I can't be critical of the WWE of being how predictable it was, and knowing that Kevin Owens was going to lose, knowing that Randy Orton was going to lose. It's just, but don't worry about that they're going to lose. Just worry about the how and see if it's good. And this card feels a lot like that to me. So we'll see. But what's your interest level? To me, I'm looking forward to 3 matches more than Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry.
Yeah, I'm pretty neutral on this too. I'm very confident it's going to be Danielson getting the victory over Jack Perry. For the sake of conversation and try and pique some interest and try and give a case for maybe why Jack Perry could win is, we talked about Darby Allin, what his relation could be with the Jon Moxley storyline, but he has a title shot, and the last opponent that Jack Perry had was with Darby Allin, and they're part of that Four Pillars thing that they continue to push in AEW. And another person who also has a title shot waiting in the wings is Christian Cage, another guy who Jack Perry has history with and could be somebody you could put into a world title scene. So if you wanted to make a case for Jack Perry to win, and I'm not saying I think this is going to happen, this is merely just a case I would like to put forward, is that there are opponents that are set up for him in the future if they do want to put the title on Jack Perry and have something built in already, if they want to do that. Having said all of that, they're not going to end Bryan Danielson's full-time career here in Chicago this Sunday, or Saturday, I guess I should say now. I have Bryan Danielson winning the match.
That's why Ben. That's why Zach's the host of this show, because he laid out a pretty good case there. You got Christian, you got Darby Allin, and it would be shocking if Jack Perry won the title. But winning the title and being part of the elite with the world title, the tag team championships, and the continental championship, running the company, and Bryan Danielson going home after getting his moment in a shocking way and putting over a younger talent, I at least can understand the logic there. Ben, do I think it's going to happen? No, but that's pretty good laying it out there, Zach.
I would also like to point something else out. I think on the previous show, Zach was talking about getting that heat from having Jack in Chicago. I think, Zach, you're misremembering. I think Jack actually got cheered in that Windy City Riot New Japan show while he was in Chicago. I could be wrong.
I thought he was booed.
I think he was, like, by the end of the match, he was being cheered for. So I think it'll be such an interesting dynamic, especially now that he's had some time to be back, because that was like really soon after he re-debuted. So I think in addition to the rest of this card, where you're going to get some really solid matches, the atmosphere for that match, I'm incredibly invested in.
One of the things that tells me that, although it's a really good theory, Zach, that it won't happen is because it's not the main event.
Yep.
And the main event is a match that doesn't have the title. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the other couple of matches that I'm looking forward to more than that one, of course, we talked about MJF and Daniel Garcia. I'm looking forward to that one more personally. And I'm also looking forward to, this is one I can go along with, and that's Pac against Will Ospreay. I mean, these are two of the best wrestlers in the world. And Ben, to me, this one, you can sell me on, it really doesn't matter if Pac doesn't beat him. That Will Ospreay is, and Pac could just be amazing on its own no matter what. This one I'm looking forward to an incredible amount.
Yeah, the only problem I have with this match is I'm worried that it's kind of just like a throwaway to get to eventually Ospreay and Ricochet. I think that both guys will work incredibly hard and the match will be unreal, but kind of like the opposite feeling that you have for some of the other matches where I really don't think Ospreay's going to lose, but if he did, I'd be thrilled and I would probably enjoy the match more because it has that unpredictability. And then you somehow get to Ospreay and Ricochet through another way. But yeah, I think this is probably, I'm probably going to be in the minority here. I have more invested in Danielson and Jack Perry than this match, although I expect this match to be better.
Wow.
Wow,
Okay, there you go. I was not expecting that, actually.
That's a true fan, boy. Like that guy's invested. Okay? He loves his Jack Perry. He wants the world to know how great Jack Perry is. So you get to tell us, Ben.
I love, by the way, that, you know, Lee is straight up calling you a fanboy on the show, yet I'm the one getting the attacks from Ben Soubliere here. Whether it be my rating for the WWE show or
why are you saying fanboy is a negative thing? What that's a
oh,
real
don't
thing,
try and
Zach,
pull that.
Don't be putting like what am I looking for?
Innuendo, connotation.
Yeah, don't be putting big words in my mouth when I can't say them. Okay, I meant that very positively about fanboy and his investment into the company. Don't switch and turn it, Zach, to make it negative. Your star rating is embarrassing, but I don't say anything about it. Now other people are talking about it, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna let them talk about it.
I would consider myself just a fan of professional wrestling and not sports entertainment. And I've been that way since TNA was an alternative, seeing shows at Universal Studios since DVD trading, Ring of Honor. So you can call me a fanboy, but I am just a connoisseur of professional wrestling.
Is anybody picking Pac?
I'm not picking Pac, no.
No.
Okay, all right. Neither am I. But I'm really looking forward to the match. So basically, all of us, correct me if I'm wrong, have Bryan Danielson, Will Ospreay, Mercedes Moné, MJF, Chris Statlander, and Kazuchika Okada.
Yes.
Correct?
That's what I have, yes. And the Bucks retaining over Blackpool Combat Club as well.
What's that? Sorry? And the Bucks
retaining over Blackpool Combat Club.
Yes. Ben, would you disagree with any of that?
Oh, when it comes to putting pen to paper, I might make a quick change depending on who wins in the triple or the three matches for the Continental Classic Fatal 4-Way. I might change my mind in terms of who that could be because I really think Takeshita having that title might open up some things for Okada and might lead to some really interesting wrestlers being chosen for the Continental Classic when it comes in December. Because I think it was announced, like I think everything kind of started towards like beginning of November. So we're getting there. Like it's only a month and a half away. So depending on what your plans are for Okada for the rest of the year, that would be my only, I think, variation on there is that depending on what happens with Collision and Rampage, maybe you are hot-shotting
okay, so
Takeshita.
Let's put it out there. If Takeshita wins and is in the match against Okada, are you betting on him to win?
I will go with my gut tomorrow. I want to say I'm probably like 90% yes, but then I like trying to beat people, and sometimes it blows up in my face. Like when I picked Swerve to win at All In, and that's what cost me in my own house, as you would say.
Well, not as I would say. That's where we were, and
That's what happened.
And some WWE fanboy beat you in your own house.
Oh, maybe I have to burn down my own house.
Well, I'm just saying, those are the facts. That's what happened.
So on the day of, I might change my mind from Okada, but if I were to, it'd be Takeshita.
I still didn't understand his answer. Right now, Takeshita and Okada will just say that they're fighting. Who are you picking?
Just to be different, I'll say Takeshita.
There you go. That's
All
what
right.
Lee was looking for.
I'm looking for, so then he can tell us that there is some variance and stuff when we all know Okada's just going to win. So now we get to the steel cage match. Lights out, unsanctioned. Hangman, Adam Page, Swerve Strickland. I think a deserving main event. I don't say that very often when it comes to, I always think the AEW title should be last. But in this particular case where Danielson just won and he's in this kind of meaningless feud with Jack Perry, and then you have kind of the height of Swerve Strickland and Adam Page after what happened on Dynamite, I have no issue with this being the main event. Ben, let's start with you. What do you think happens in this match? A lot of possibilities with that lights out unsanctioned part of it.
Yeah, I mean, holy cow. What a build to this match. And it's been a while since we've had a lights out match. And then to add the steel cage stipulation, and then considering what happened at Full Gear last year in the Texas Death Match, I have to think this is a way for Hangman to finally get a win in this feud without it, officially affecting Swerve's record. But the man just burnt down his house. So, how is he the good guy in this, even winning in a steel cage match? So, like you said, the rest of the card might be fairly predictable. I feel like I have no idea what's going to happen in this match besides carnage, and I'm all here for it.
Okay, do we see, before we get to Zach's pick, do we see anybody else involved in this? Ben?
I don't think so, because they kind of Hangman made the point. The whole point was, you can't do this on your own. You can't beat me on your own. I expect Nano to be at ringside because he's always there, but I don't see him scaling the cage to help out Swerve. So unless you're going some crazy return or crazy debut and you want to set up something else for both these guys to do and move away from this feud for a little bit, I think this is just going to be a straight up bloodbath between the two of them.
Okay, Zach, who wins? Hangman Adam Page or Swerve Strickland?
I'm going Swerve Strickland here to get the victory. Get the victory from his loss at All In. I think it makes sense as well for the story. I think this is a story that even with this stipulation, with the unsanctioned lights out, it doesn't count, whatever sort of stipulation you want to put on it, steel cage match, that they will find a way to continue this feud and just make that the story of Hangman continuing to try and go after Swerve whichever way possible to try and overthrow him, but ultimately Swerve wins. So I think that's the way that they've got it laid out here. I think there's more potential for more matches later on. You were talking about, Ben, in terms of you thought this was a match that could happen at All In this past year. I think they could extend this feud so that we could have it at All In next year in Texas. I think there's a lot to work with here. So I am picking Swerve to get the victory, and it just continues the insanity that Hangman Page has already developed, but it continues to go more insane, and I've got Swerve getting the victory.
Okay, I actually thought this would be a clean sweep as well, and it's not going to be because you guys have both picked opposite guys. I agree with Ben. I think you got to give Hangman Page a win here, and doing it in the crazy form that he is in sets him up now for the rest of where he wants to go. And it kind of puts Swerve Strickland maybe on the offense now because Swerve Strickland's been on the defense, and it's been Hangman Page doing things to Swerve Strickland, interfering in his title match, burning his house down, stalking him all the time. And now with a win by Hangman, to me, it kind of puts Swerve on the offense. I don't think this is the end either, but I think once you've got the title off of Swerve, you don't need to heat him back up right away. He's a main event player. Just because he loses this doesn't make him any less. And I just don't know if I wouldn't involve anybody else personally if I had the pencil, because I think it's just that culmination of a blood feud that you just need the two guys to beat the hell out of each other. And somebody like Hangman, who's crazy, goes a little bit far in having to do what he has to do to win. But I don't think it's over. I hope they don't screw it up, because it was such a good build on Wednesday for the go-home show by burning the house down. I hope they don't do something that somebody else interferes or debuts or any of that stuff. I worry about that a little bit, but maybe we see somebody at the end come and that to me is where this has got the possibility that somebody comes to help Swerve after it's over. And who might that be? Possibly Kenny Omega? Possibly a guy who we know that these two have gotten along for a long time, and Adam Copeland. And then what you would do is get somebody else involved with Adam Page at that point. But I hope that doesn't happen. I'm surprised that we all didn't pick all of the same people. But apparently, Ben, you think it's going to be a sneaky good card.
Sneaky good. One of those cards where you think you know all the answers and they change the questions.
Well, I hope so. And that's the way I always go into it. Even like Bash at Berlin for the WWE. There's a hope, right? There's a, hey, it's live. It's professional wrestling. It's their job to swerve us. And you hope that you don't know everything before you go in. I hope that as a fan. I don't want to be right. It's hard, Zach? For me, it's hard to be right for me all the time. But when I'm right all the time, it's boring. I get nothing from Zach on that.
No,
nothing.
Yeah, I just let
no bait.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything.
Okay, well, any final thoughts, Ben, on where you think kind of things are going? I know that Tony Khan said that they're in the most important time in AEW history. I'm sure he's probably talking about maybe a new TV deal. And it was also announced that we should talk about them going to Australia for a big show. Get it? Big Show was down there.
Very nice.
Yeah. And Tony Storm also was down there. They're going to Brisbane and going to do a stadium show down there. So, I mean, that's exciting. Do you expect, Ben, the TV deal to be coming up soon?
I think if you're going to announce the TV deal, it's probably going to get dragged out until whenever Grand Slam is.
Yeah.
Would be my expectation. But I guess we'll see. I feel like it's something that once it's actually done, all the information will be leaked out well before an announcement. So I don't know how long you'll have to string things along. You kind of have to come out and say it once it's done. So if they drag it along and negotiations go into another month or whatever it is, then you could probably announce it at Grand Slam. But that would be my expectation, is that they've kind of almost pushed this past the finish line.
Yeah, I think they've already got a TV deal done in principle, and I think they're just dotting some I's and crossing some T's. And in terms of a timeline of when this deal would be announced, I could see that Grand Slam show. I think around that 5-year anniversary Dynamite as well could be a possibility in terms of them announcing it. It's like, oh, we've been on here for 5 years and we're going to be on here for however many more when they announce this new TV deal. And like what Ben said, I see this being leaked out to like a Variety or some of those big magazine type websites where they'll get all the details, and then we'll learn more about the money deal there. But I'll say this, like, they're booking these big shows, as you mentioned, with Grand Slam in Australia next year, and obviously the Texas show. They aren't doing this if there isn't something in principle that's in place for them to be able to do those big shows next year. So I'm fairly confident a deal is already done. They're just, trying to get some lawyers to overlook some stuff and make sure that everything looks good on paper before they officially announce it and leak it out to the news media.
Well, this has been fun, boys. I know, Zach, you got to get going. I appreciate doing this on the cusp of All Out coming up, which is now tomorrow night on Saturday, September the 7th. And we'll be here, a full review probably on Monday to be able to do that. And hopefully we don't know all the answers here. But Ben Soubliere, always good to catch up with you. And we do thank you for your time today during a work day and making time for us. So thank you, and look forward to All Out. Have fun with it.
Thanks, you guys. And if people are looking to get together to watch the show, you can always come to my place.
See, that's exactly. I denied so many people the other couple of weeks ago. It's like they all wanted to get to your house, and I'm like, yeah, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough.
Especially with that angle on TV, maybe they don't want people going to your house at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good
Whose
point.
house? Ben's house.
Ben's house.
All right. For Ben Soubliere and Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to This Is Wrestling.